Welcome back to Just Saying. Today's episode is one that hits close to home for so many families. My guest is Steve Ward, and he knows firsthand the chaos that addiction and mental health issues can bring into a household. After nearly 40 years in the business world, he stepped away to follow a higher calling, founding a nonprofit ministry that helps people avoid destructive cycles and build a better life. He's a speaker, coach, author of 2 books, and the voice behind the blog, Next Right Steps. Today, he's sharing his story of brokenness, healing, and hope, and reminding us that no matter how far down we go, there's always a way back up. Let's get to it. Hey friends, I'm joined here with Steve Ward, who walked away from nearly 4 decades of the corporate world, right? And created a new mission, and one centered on helping make people's lives better and, one step at a time. And I just want to say thank you, Steve, for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Wow, that sounds like a long time when you say 4 decades, doesn't it? Yeah, it was.
I know.
It was
I could
38
probably
years with IBM. That was a long time. So.
I could probably put 4 decades in my lifespan. Well, I could actually. I'm getting up there. So yeah, thank you for joining us. I wanted to get a little personal, if that's okay, and ask you kind of a personal question. You don't have to
All
share, but
good.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you share a little bit about your background, with your struggle with addiction? Well, like alcoholism, right? Was that right? And the family issues that shaped your current path,
Yeah.
if you don't.
Well, as we all do, right? As we grow up and go through the teenage years, we all figure out a way to feel the way we want to feel, right? And I was comfortable in my persona. I was pretty good in school, right? I was valedictorian in my high school and all that kind
Oh,
of stuff. But that's the identity I wanted to have is I wanted to be cool, and I wanted all the cute girls to like me, and I wanted to hang with the cool crowd, right?
we
And
all.
and and all of us at the ages 15, 16, 17 have these little insecurities we're carrying with us, right? So I found a great tool that helped me address those, which was alcohol, right? It made me cool and calm and connected all at the same time. So it kind of became a go-to mechanism for me. And then I went to college. I went to Georgia Tech. So I got an engineering degree, but by now I had become relatively dependent. That part of the way I dealt with the world included alcohol, right? So I might, you know, study 15 hours in a row for a physics or a calculus test or an engineering test. And the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, okay, when I get done, go do this test so I can go drink. In other words, it had become part of me. And then when I got out of school, I started work with IBM right out of school, hence 38 years. And I was professional. I became what you might call a high functioning alcoholic. And I don't use that term high functioning to mean I was less than one. I just mean it because it's descriptive. There are
Yeah.
many, many people out there, Jess, who, because they get up and go to work every day or they do well in school, they think they don't have an addiction problem. Well, that's not necessarily the case. An addiction is is something that we do over and over again that has negative consequences, and we find it hard to stop. Well, we've all got those, right? It could be a
Ice
substance or a
cream.
behavior. So we've all got these things, right? That's what addiction is.
Right.
And it was something that I depended on. So I was a high functioning alcoholic. And then over the course of years, nothing was, I wasn't getting arrested or thrown in jail, and nobody really knew. But the weight I carried grew. And as you said, actually 3 out of 4 members of my family wound up in later years struggling with both alcohol and in one case drugs and even in some cases mental health issues like anxiety and depression. So in later years, our family went into called the dark ages, and it was tough. And that's really
Did you
what.
grow up like with a father that drank, or with a parent or somebody that you were around that drank? I mean, if you don't mind me asking.
I'm sorry if you don't
Did
mind asking again.
Yeah, I can. Maybe I'm not talking into my microphone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you have any role models that were drinking, or somebody in your life when you were growing up that they just,
That's good.
I mean,
That's good.
I know that a lot of people smoked a lot back then. I'm
Yeah.
not saying back then. I'm sorry. I'm not dating you.
Back when people like you were young. I got it. Okay.
They were chain smokers. I mean, you were smoking in the bathroom. You were
Yeah.
smoking. I mean,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, like, I know a lot of people smoke because they wanted, it was everybody says, oh, it's good. It's not bad for you. It's cool. And you look great. And it was all in the movies and everything, and drinking too. I mean, you can't even look back without them like sipping down some scotch or something. But I mean, did you have anybody besides like the environment outside of your family? Did you have anybody inside your family that maybe were
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
that?
Well, one of my parents was also, I guess you would say, a high functioning alcoholic. And
Yeah.
so, my image growing up is that I'll just say it from my standpoint, right? What a man does is he works real hard, and at home, if he drinks to feel better for a little while, so from that standpoint, but even more than that, I think it's in the peer group,
Yeah. I mean,
and
you
it's even more now, right? You know, 3 out of 4 kids in high school drink some alcohol. It's not like it's a small select few off doing it. And most of the people I think that I esteemed to want to hang around, and most of them were drinking. So, yeah.
my dad, he would get a 6 pack of Budweiser, the not Bud Light, but Budweiser, and he put it at the bottom of the refrigerator door, and they'd be in there until the summer, and then he'd drink one when he was out pulling the weeds or something, and that was how like, so I never really grew up around it. But my husband and I, we met in a bar. So we both worked in, I was a cocktail server, he was a bartender, so we worked in the nightclub, and so we would drink while we were working, and then we would drink after work, and then we'd go to sleep. We'd drink because we were so, by 2 o'clock in the morning, you were like way up here
Yeah.
already.
Yeah, I bet.
And so you drink to kind of like, I don't know, you think you're going to like calm down or whatever it's going to be. And so we did a lot of drinking, me and my husband both. And now we look back and we're like, dang, I'm surprised we're not like got cirrhosis of the liver. But we don't drink we don't drink like that anymore. But I think that had we had the preclusion to have like an addiction part of it, we would I kind of understand what you're saying though. Like you kind of thought like, okay, I can't wait to go have that drink, like you were kind of craving it. And but I have other addictions. I have like ice cream and chocolate and salt and all that kind of stuff. It's just a different type of a thing. But I kind of just was kind of relating with what you were saying, and I'm
Yeah,
sorry I pulled this off a little bit, but
that's all good. I'm just saying, though, people are wired different. And I
yeah,
guarantee you, there are many, many people in your audience who know exactly what I'm talking about. In other words, like your dad putting beer in a refrigerator and having one whenever I don't even contemplate that behavior as being something a human being could do. That makes no sense at all to me. No sense. The reason you the reason you have your first beer is because you have to have the first one before you get to the second
yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
leaving the beer in the refrigerator doesn't happen in this household either,
yeah,
because my husband and I, like, we do, like, we'll buy every 2 weeks, we'll buy something. He always says, "I don't wanna drink this paycheck, just don't buy anything." So every paycheck, we'll buy, like, a 12-pack of beer or something, and then that for 2 weeks, that's what we have. But, I was gonna tell you a story. This is totally off topic, and then we'll get back to you, I'm so sorry. But this is kind of funny. Okay, so when I was in high school, people will always say, like, they had the thing for spritzing in your hair, it's called Sun-In, and so I wanted to do that kind of thing, but I didn't know how like alcohol. So I used my mom and dad's only bottle up in the above the refrigerator, that cabinet above the fridge that nobody ever uses. They had one bottle of amaretto because that was my mom's thing, and Absolute. Clear Absolute. And so I took it and I took half the bottle and I put it in a spray bottle. And I was using it for my hair. I was laying out in the sun. And for some reason, I don't know why, my mom was up there getting a pan or something. And she noticed that the bottle was like half empty. And she's like, Jessica, do you know who took the alcohol? And I go, yeah, me. Like, she's like, what? And I was like, yeah, I used it for my hair. Like, it was just so funny that like, it was like she really paid attention, my mom, to like things like that to make sure that like nobody was doing something crazy around the house. But I just thought it was funny that like, yeah, mom, I took it. Like she was like, what? And she was all like concerned that I was all drinking. I'm like, yeah, I put it in my hair. I wanted my hair lighter. And she just thought I was the stupidest thing. Anyways, okay, so we're gonna
All good.
rewind and come back to you. I just thought it was a funny story and came to my mind. Okay, so can I ask you a question? Was there a breaking point where you knew something had to change? I mean, like you got to a point where you're like, something's gotta give.
That's a good question. Um, as most alcoholics will do, eventually, if you're keeping your eyes open, you'll notice, there are ways that my life could be better if I didn't drink alcohol. Now, again, I didn't have, what you would call a deep bottom, right, where my life was coming, but there were things that could have been better. Um, and they accumulated over time. For me, it was two or three things coming together. One was the spiritual side of it, right? Is in my 20s and 30s, I didn't really pay much attention to God, to be perfectly frank. Spirituality wasn't a big part of my life. I'd been raised in the church, but it wasn't that big a deal. But in my late 30s and 40s, I went on what I called a search for the truth, where I went and read dozens, if not a couple of hundred of books on, God, the Bible, and these things. And then that and another series of things led me to accept that God needs to be one of the biggest parts of my life. And God is a loving, graceful God, right? So he didn't whack me between the eyes and say, Steve, quit sinning or you're going to hell. It was more, I now felt like I was more inclined to want to live in a way that how we're designed to live. And whether people think about it or not, putting a mind-altering substance into your body to change how you're designed to bring is probably not how we're designed to live. So
Right.
I had this growing desire that I just shouldn't be living this way. Um, the other thing that hit me is my family started falling apart around me, right? So I'm thinking, man, I can't be a stumbling block for them. I need to be there for them. But the third thing was I started looking down the road, and I suggest anybody do this. In recovery, they have something called play the tape forward. Now, that's old technology. Young people don't even know what playing a tape means, right? But basically, that means look at what you're doing and see where that's taking you and think about that. And I thought, am I going to get to be in my 60s or 70s or 80s or whatever and look back on my life and think, well, I did a pretty good job of having a good buzz and enjoying my life. Is that going to be what my life was all about? And that scared me to death. I thought, no, I don't want my life to be defined as a selfish pursuit of the next buzz or the next momentary comfort. I want it to be more than that. So it was really those things that kind of came together that said, I need to stop, and wherever someone is on the addiction journey, a lot of them may think they're not going to be able to. Yes, you can. Um, there are programs and people out there that you can. In fact, I would give you a realistic assurance of a positive future that no matter what your problem is now, it can get better and you can get over it. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. You'll have to want to. You'll have to have a why. But then if you get around the right people and get involved with the right resources and the right program, there are millions of people who've been right where you are. You don't know that, but there are. They've been right where you are, if not worse, and they've gotten better. There are steps you can take that will help. There are groups you can be a part of that will help. And there happens to be a God that created you, that loves you, that will be with you every step of the way. So whatever you're struggling with, things can get better. But you kind of have to take the steps yourself, you know. So
Um, did you? Okay, I know that you had like three things that you kind of listed. Was there somebody that helped you, or was there like, did you have like somebody guiding you and like showing you too? Like, because I know that a lot of people, you don't have to hit rock bottom to start. Like, trying to get sober and work in the steps. I mean, I know the steps they're there because they work. So I just say the steps because I think most people out there know when they go to an addiction rehab, a lot of times they work those steps. I don't really know exactly what they are, which is terrible, but
Yeah, it's
um,
all good.
I know that they work if you work them. That's what I hear. But was there somebody that helped you
Yeah,
like in your
that's
process?
that's a good question. I'm not sure my route was typical. So for anyone listening, by far, your odds and frankly your enjoyment along the way will increase if you get into some kind of recovery program like Celebrate Recovery or AA or Narcotics Anonymous or something like that. And if you get someone to be your mentor or what they call a sponsor to walk with you. And if you go to meetings where you'll find graceful, humble people that don't ever put you on the spot and that accept you and you'll come to see as friends and confidants and compatriots. That's the best way to do it.
You know
Um,
what? Can I
yeah,
stop you there for a second? Okay,
yeah,
so I talk about this a lot, but I don't know if you know this, so I'm gonna say it now. But my parents put me in a drug rehab when they thought I was on drugs in high school. I never did drugs. I still to this day. I mean, yes, we talked. I've drank alcohol. I worked in a nightclub, but I've never done drugs ever, ever. And so my parents and I only drank like twice in high school. Like I went to two parties. That was it. And one time my dad knew I was drunk because I came home, and the other time it was like a secret. But I never really went to too many house parties. My girl, because I was in sports, so we always were out on a meet or a team. We were traveling. But my parents put me in a drug rehab. They dropped me off. And so then when I was there, I had to do when you sit in a group, the groups. And so they would say my name is whatever the name was, and I'm my drug of choice is cocaine. And then they would come to me and I say, my name is Jessica and my and I'm a known bitch at home. That's all I could say. I'm the known bitch at home. And they
yeah.
said, what do you mean? And they go, what's your drug? And I go, I swear to you, have never done drugs. And they go, they said like, no, really, this is a safe place. You could tell us. And I would tell them and they didn't believe. And then so after like that first session, almost everybody there was like, I believe you, Jessica. And they let me sit in my truth, and I told them what was going on at home, and they believed me, and so that felt good. And then they would say like, where's your drug? Like, we had, don't ask me why, but they required that we brought a photo album with us. And so my mom brought my photo album, and in it was just all pictures of sports, cheerleaders, basketball players, like all my friends. Cause we used to, in high school, you trade pictures all the time. And so I had a photo album of just all my friends, and they go, where's your drinking pictures? And I'm like, I don't have any because I don't drink. But anyways, so my parents, so when the drug test came back, they found out I wasn't on drugs, and then they pulled me out after 4 days. But was trying to get to the point that when you do go to these places, the people there that are living through it as well, they listen to you and they really try to help you work out your problems. And it is a supportive place. And so,
Yeah. In
yes,
fact,
what kind of, I just wanted to,
yeah.
kind of interject that. I know it's a crazy story and it's hard to
Man,
believe, but
there's a story I use. I talk to lots of organizations and churches and do podcasts and write books and stuff. But there's a story I tell sometime to make that point you're saying, and also for anyone listening to let them know they shouldn't be fearful about going to a recovery meeting. Right? They're not going to be put on the spot. They're not going to be embarrassed, and they'll find people that they enjoy getting to know. The little story I tell is, imagine you go out and talk to, you meet a friend, and you say to them, and they say, "How you doing?" First off, what are most people going to instantly say? Fine. You know,
fine.
whether or not you're fine or not is what you'll say. And if you're in most cases, the other person will accept that you're fine, and y'all will chit chat on some shallow topic for a little while, and then you'll go about your own way. You know, whereas inside, the odds are high that one or the two of you has something going on in your life,
Right.
but you're not choosing to share. Now take that same scenario and you you go up to someone and they say, "How you doing?" And you go, "Well, I'm fine." Wonder if they go, "No, really? Really?" How you doing? I want to know. And you sense that they're sincere. And so you dip your toe in the water and you say, well, actually, I'm struggling a little bit. Um, I've had some depression, or I think I may be drinking. I'm struggling a little bit. I don't know what to do with it. And instead of that person becoming uncomfortable and backing away from you, they draw towards you and they go, I get that. I've struggled with that too. I understand. I know lots of people who are right where you are. How does it make you feel? In other words, they draw towards you out of compassion and
Right.
empathy and all that.
Yeah, they
And
don't
then,
coil away and make you feel
yeah,
embarrassed.
and
They
and you
lean in.
take those two situations, and I said, well, wonder if one of them happened in the lobby of your church and the other one happened at a recovery meeting. Guess which was which? You know, um, Recovery just breeds a set of people who are real and humble and not trying to go out of their way to impress you with how cool they are. They're just they're trying to get better themselves, and everybody is a fellow traveler on the same journey. Whereas when we're out in the real world, we tend to think, how do I get someone else to think a certain way about me? We're very, we lose our sense of identity and self, and we act a certain way to try to impress people that, that's just kind of the reality of the human condition. So, uh, you know,
Yeah, I totally get it. Good story. I mean, that really kind of really explained better than my story. But after so you were like what 38 years in the business world. I mean, and I was it still with IBM or did you shuffle
yeah,
around a little bit?
with different jobs. I started with engineering, went into sales,
Engineering. Cool.
transformation, and then
You got a
marketing.
mind for engineering. That's really strong. Engineering's not no joke. Like
Yeah, yeah,
legit. What gave you the courage to pivot so dramatically? I mean, so
yeah,
you pivot from business to ministry,
yeah,
correct?
yeah. That's a good question. In retrospect, I guess it was courageous, but it didn't feel courageous to me, right? Because that's not why I did it. In other words, I'm with IBM. I'm in recovery for myself. I'm in recovery as a spouse, and I'm in recovery as a dad. And in recovery, I reached the conclusions. By the way, being exposed to those 12 steps you were talking about, right? And I had three epiphanies that hit me. The first was, well, I'll be darned. Some of the world's worst problems, which I would suggest include substance abuse and mental health issues, they're very treatable. And not only are they treatable, they're potentially preventable. So I thought, well, that's pretty cool. In other words, there are millions of people who get over these things. Not to say it's easy for everyone, but it can be done. The second is one of the best ways to prevent problems from happening is to learn to live life effectively, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, personally. We do what we do for a reason, right? And if there's a hole in our lives, whether it's a lack of purpose or loneliness or anxiety, we'll find a substance or behavior to feel it. So the way to prevent that is to live life effectively. And the third was that happens to align very largely with how we're directed to do so in the Bible. In other words, God created us and God has some suggestions about how we ought to live, and all this stuff lines up. So the question that changed the course of my life and led me toward eventually leaving IBM was I thought, why in the world do we wait till people crash and burn and then send them to a recovery meeting? That doesn't make any sense. Where do people learn how to live life effectively? And the answer, Jess, is most people make it up as they go along. Maybe they learn some pieces from their parents. Maybe they're not learning it in school. They're probably not reading those books. They're not, you know, we make it up along the way. We make up our coping mechanisms and things. Well, wonder if there were a set of practical steps people could take to live life better. And that led me to write my first book, which actually took a lot of the wisdom from recovery, including the 12 steps, and made it easy to understand. It's called Steps: A Daily Journey to a Better Life. And it's not really about recovery or addiction, it's about living life effectively. And I was so captivated by that process of thinking, how can we communicate ways so that people can live life better and prevent problems from happening? That I started a blog and kept
Can
doing
I
that.
ask you, can I ask you a question about the
Yeah.
book?
Yeah.
'Cause I feel, I mean, I always struggle. trying to find out something that my son could grasp onto, because he, he's like a lot of Gen Zers, or I think he's, no, I don't think he's a millennial. I think he's a Gen Z, and a lot of Gen Zs that they need some coaching or some sort of like a life coach to catapult them into like the reality that they are a grown up. Like, I know they don't believe that at 18 you are now a grown, but, or like at 21 they still feel like, my son still feels like he is still should be at home because he's not ready to move out yet, because I mean, he wouldn't be able to take care of himself, and that is a reality. And so I'm always looking for something that I can, I don't know, like
Yeah.
help him in
Yeah.
some way. Does that
Um,
make sense?
at if you go to our website, which is lifeimprovementsteps.com, right? A lot of what we do, we don't roll it out. I mean, we have a section called behavioral health, right? So that is preventing addiction, understanding anxiety and mental well-being, understanding recovery. So things directly related to behavioral health. We also have a section, by the way, for parents on parenting kids, parenting teenagers, what we call biblical parenting, parenting in a crisis, grandparenting. Well, we also have a section on life improvement, right? Which frankly has, I guess, 5 courses in it, which kind of take some of the essence of what young people may call adulting, but really what all of us. Now, it's not things as simple as, you know, the mechanics of it. It's the deeper thing. Like one of them is um, being intentional in your life. What does that mean? Most young people these days are not really very intentional. They're kind of living compulsively or impulsively or, in reaction to the moment. They're not thinking long term. And so, you know, they're thinking Friday night rather than, hey,
Right.
am I moving in a direction that's positive? So we have the concept of intentionality. We have another one on being productive. What does it mean to be productive? And how do you do it? A third one on effective relationships, whether it's friends or family or making more friends, another one on spiritual growth, right? Understanding wherever you are, whether you believe that there's a God or you're just interested in spirituality or you just want to deepen your faith, wherever you are, how do you ask bigger questions to move in the right direction? And one on, like dealing with, anxiety and emotional well-being, because we've all got stuff. So that might be something that he might find something there that would be of interest. We have
Yeah.
articles that are written for older teenagers. I could send you a link to them. They're in this section on how do you get prepared, for being a young adult kind of stuff. So,
Say the
uh,
website again one more time. We'll say it
so
a few times.
the website is lifeimprovementsteps.com. Again,
Lifeimprovementsteps.com. We're gonna
lifeimprovementsteps.com.
we're gonna say that a few times because I think that it's a vital resource for parents, and for my son. He has Asperger's, but, and so like it goes in line with what you're saying. Mental health issues, and a lot, moving forward. I feel as though like I failed him in some ways because I was a helicopter parent, somebody that was like hovering over him all the time, making sure everything was handled. Because when your kids are struggling in school, then I took on the role as a parent, trying to make sure his life was better as at all possible, like points. And so I did it at the detriment to his development. I hovered over him, and it's really not great. He'll even tell me, he's like, I can't even do anything, mom, because you didn't let me try. Like he blames me, like whatever.
Okay, well, good. Well, he's inviting the opportunity to do things himself now. There you go.
Yeah, yeah,
He's right where
exactly.
he's supposed to be, right?
So you founded a nonprofit, right? Can you
I
tell us a
did.
little bit about your vision on that?
Yeah, 7.5 years ago, I founded a 501c3 nonprofit. It's called Steps Ministries, or Steps. So if anybody goes to lifeimprovementsteps.com, they'll see all about it. And we deliver practical resources to help hurting people find help, healing, and hope. And those aren't just empty words, right? Help is practical steps to improve your life. In other words, it's the how. The healing part is encouragement, because frankly, we've been there, done that. We know lots of people who have. Um, it's okay not to be okay, but you don't have to stay that way. We kind of come at things without judgment and with a lot of grace. And then hope is what I said before, the realistic assurance of a positive future. The fact that life can get better. You may have to do some things and you may have to put in the work, but life can get better. And there's lots of reasons why that is. So that's what steps is all about. So
So, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so here's a question I have written down. So, but we might have touched on it a little bit too. But you've talked about before, like you said, the toughest times teach us the most, right? What are some lessons or some struggles that taught you that you pass on to others? Is there like a go-to that you use?
yeah. Well, yeah, to make that point come to life, because just that acceptance that our toughest times, the most painful, hardest times, very often when we look back at them, are when the most exciting change actually happens. Now, it doesn't feel like it at the moment, but okay, there was a time in my family when I was an alcoholic who felt shameful about it. I had a wife who was an alcoholic and a son we had to take out of high school because of drugs and alcohol, and 3 out of the 4 members of our family. And with all that stuff going on, you can guess that that created marriage issues and financial problems. So that's what I call the dark ages. And there were times when I didn't know what was gonna I didn't know what's gonna happen. Any one of a number of bad things could have happened, you know.
Scary.
But in retrospect, God did His most incredible work with me, my son, and even my wife in those times. Now it was painful. Now this sounds like, Steve, you're just saying that because it sounds good, but I absolutely mean it. I would not change that for anything in the world that we went through that, because and my son now is doing very, very well. He has found his way. He has a great job that he's good at. He's got married and he's made us a grandparent 9 months ago. So
Oh,
he and I
congrats.
he and I have had this conversation many times. I'll say, son, you are now the man that God intended you to be, not in spite of what you went through, but in many
Because
cases because of it. And he gets that. So if people only hear this, whatever you're going through, it may be shaping you for something that is to come. And the other is, wherever you are spiritually, for me, I used to think it was like I was drowning at times, and God was in a lifeboat throwing me a preserver with a lifeline on it, and it was the one thing that kept me going at times. So I would suggest that if you don't have a spiritual life, you might want to investigate one, because when times struggle, you're going to need it, and and hold on to it. But that said, those times will shape you in ways that can be life changing. You know.
sometimes this is what I talk about in my book. I talk about how for a while, I didn't pay attention, but God was putting things in my life for a reason. And I was going through everything I was going through for a reason. And, then I truly believe that like he would leave me like little breadcrumbs. Uh, I have a story. So like when I was, after college, I was thinking about what I was going to do next, and I was looking for a job and everything. And I was cleaning out my garage with all my old college papers. I was dumping them in the trash, in the big bin, And I had a card that fell to the floor. And I looked at the card and I thought, oh, this was that girl that gave us jam, like when we were in college, and she has good jam, and it was her farm. And I put it in my back pocket, and I thought, this girl, that was great jam. Maybe I might order some more, right? And so then, and I had thought to myself, the reason why I'm dumping these is because I was going to hold on to them in case I needed it for if I decided to get my master's. And I thought, no, I'll never get my master's because I'm not smart enough, is what I told myself. And so then the next day, and this is right around COVID, and the the grocery stores were just chaotic, and I was walking down the water and Coke aisle or whatever at Albertsons or whatever store it was, I can't remember. And this girl started walking towards me, and she had like this glow behind her. She had these curly blonde hair and she had this glow behind her. And I walked up to her and I realized it was that girl from the I still had a card. I was wearing the same jeans, which is kind of gross, but I mean, I was wearing the same jeans from like the day before. This is just the day before. And I pulled out her card and I go, I swear I just saw your card yesterday and I put it in my jeans. Look, this is so crazy. I'm so great to see you. And she said, oh, I go, what are you doing? And she said, I'm getting my master's degree. And I just was thinking of that yesterday. And I thought I probably I could never get my master's degree. That's just too much. I just don't think I could do it. She goes, no, really. And she explained to me where she was going and how really wasn't that hard. And you can do it online, and it was accredited college. And she explained everything to me. And it was just like I was being hit across the face. Like God was telling me, go to school, get your master's degree. And so she walked away, and I thought to myself, like just a flood came over me, like, get your master's degree, Jessica. And this is where you're going. And I went home, and as soon as my husband came home, I go, Doug, God's telling me to go get my master's degree at this college. Can I please do it? And he said, whatever's your path, man. He goes, I got my master's. He goes, why not you get yours too? And I was like, okay. So, but what I'm trying to say is that, like, sometimes, like, there's like these little breadcrumbs, and you just have to at that moment I had opened my eyes, and I was like really receiving what he was giving me. And I was like, this is what I have to do, because it was going to shape all the things that I'm doing now. I wrote a book. I work in broadcast media, which I love. I have a job I love. I'm at home with my kids. I can stay home. I can do, I'm doing this podcast. I mean, all these things that were going to be positive. And I'm supposed to be on this podcast. I'm supposed to write my book about my God stories, which I put in there. And I'm supposed to speak about him a lot, so people out there will receive it. And so I'm just saying that I know I kind of went off on a tangent about myself, but I just wanted to put that out there, because it was very important that I say these things and tell these stories a lot, because he wants me to.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's like, we just announced a spiritual growth course that I would suggest people go look at. It's same website, lifeimprovementsteps.com/spiritual growth. Again, lifeimprovementsteps.com/spiritual growth. But anyway, the first part of that's trying to meet people where they are. And the first part of that, I talk about your worldview. Whether you know it or not, all of us have a way of thinking about the world. We may not, in other words, we have a set of values and beliefs that steer how we do everything, whether we're conscious of it or not. And just, there are two dramatically different worldviews out there, both of which have hundreds of millions of people in them. One of them is a way that says, the reason I exist is for me to be comfortable and to get all the things that I want to in life. So therefore, I'm going to try to control circumstances and other people and outcomes so that I make as much money and I impress as many people as possible so that my life is good. And there's nothing bigger than me out there, so it doesn't matter. I can do whatever I want. Everything is relative. I'm just going to make me happy. That's a worldview that is captured by hundreds of millions of people. There's another worldview that says, this is pretty interesting. I am created by a God who loves me, and he gave me certain talents that only I have. And he has things that he would like me to do. And so life becomes this exciting adventure of saying, I wonder what God wants me to do today or next year. And what's he preparing for me? And how can I do things that might be of benefit to other people and that are pleasing to God? Life just becomes this adventure. And you mentioned breadcrumbs, right? Where if God is smart enough to design the universe, guess what? He's smart enough to put breadcrumbs along our journey, right? When we start looking at life with anticipation, we'll start noticing that little meeting that was really a divine appointment we were supposed to have. In other words, I wound up talking to someone because either I needed it or they needed it at just the right time. Or that little thing happened because it led me to this conclusion. Yeah, life is just really exciting when you go about it that way, and frankly, that's how the way it works. So
I sometimes will be like, I'll be driving out and I'll go, and then the cars like part and make it. I'm like, thank you. Like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
see things differently now. It gives me goose pimples just thinking about it. But, which my friend says, that's the Holy Spirit.
yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, you do look at the world a little differently when you know that. Like, and I said the breadcrumbs because I swear, like, wasn't that like evident? Like just the day before, it fell. And when I just remember the card falling to the ground and it floated like just ever
Yeah.
so like lightly, and just
Yeah.
all these different little things, and it just, oh, it just. Anyways, a lot of times people, you just got to open up your ears, your eyes, and see what's in front of you. It's right
Yeah.
there sometimes.
My wife came up
Um,
with a term that she and I will use. She calls it looking for treasures, right? And a treasure could be, um, you see a sunset or a flower and it just strikes you a certain way. Or it could be like what we're talking about. You find yourself in a conversation with someone, it just seems like, oh, this is kind of the conversation I was meant to have. So it could be a small blessing or something works out. It could be a number of things. But when your perspective each day is where you are optimistically looking for treasures that occur, what a wonderful way to live. As opposed to, again, running heads down through life, consumed with anxiety, wondering how we're going to fix our problems so that we can have life better, and missing that life is going on all about us at the same time. So
And you know what? I always say to a lot of my guests that I have on, I say every single one of them mostly, because I find something in every single one of my guests that I'm like, I was meant to have you on here. And I always say I'm doing my own personal therapy sessions with everybody, but it's almost because they're put in my path because to help me and for me to help others. And I kind of just feel like I'm meant to do that. I mean, in high school, they used to say, like, I would never shut up. Like, they would say, dude, you talk so much. And they even put in my high school yearbook that I was destined to be a Steven Spielberg. And because I did videos and I did all kinds of stuff. So this is just in line with what I did when I was younger. And it all just is full circle. It's just this crazy thing. And I'm enjoying every single second. And I believe that you were put in my path too for a certain reason. And I'm excited to have you on so we can discuss these things that are important to. I know it's going to touch somebody out there, but can I ask you a question? Because I know you mentioned it a little bit, but we didn't really talk about your book, Next Right Steps, right? Oh no, it's a blog. You have a blog, right?
yeah, I've written 2 books. I got 6
Okay,
more I
tell
want
me
to
about
write.
the book.
We have a blog. If people want to find all of it, if they go to lifeimprovementsteps.com, they can find it. Um,
Lifeimprovementsteps.com.
lifeimprovementsteps.com, and then just click on blog, right? And you
Okay.
can go, or you can click on books, or you can click on parenting or behavior. You can find something that will likely align with something you care about in your life.
Tell me one next right step that someone listening today could take. Um, that they could, you know what I mean? That they could take if they're hurting, if they're struggling right now. Do you have one that is like one of your faves?
I do have one that I use because it's simple. It's a 3-step thing, but it'll be very simple, easy for you to remember. But I want to set it up that if you read 50 books on managing your mind, making good choices, dealing with anxiety, the neuroscience of the brain, forming good habits, avoiding temptations, and you took all that neuroscience and psychology and boiled it down, you would come up with this is what STEPS does, right? We research a lot of things that people don't have time for and make it simple and easy to understand. The simple 3 steps are pause, evaluate, choose. If you are tempted, or if you feel angry, or someone says something that strikes you the wrong way, or if you feel whatever you feel, pause. Step back from the situation, step away from the moment. It could be for a few seconds. It could be literally step back from the situation. The second is evaluate, which is just think about it. And by the way, there's a lot of neuroscience behind this, right? That says we tend to react emotionally. But when you engage the cerebral cortex part of your brain, the logical part, it balances out those emotions. So, and this can happen in seconds, right? But just evaluate, okay, what what that person said bothered me. Why did it bother me? And what should I do about it? Even if it's a few seconds, evaluate and then choose. Say, I'm going to do the next right thing. I'm not going to try to figure out the word. I'm just what seems to be the right thing. So Pause, evaluate, choose is an unbelievably powerful little tool to carry around in our pocket.
I
And,
had
and
a I
yeah,
had a oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm
that's
so
good.
sorry. I didn't
Yeah.
mean to step on you, but I was anxious to say that I had another guest on. His name was Dr. Larry Waldman, and he would talk about this in parenting, that when your kid is getting unruly, or you're having you're kind of having a spat with your kid, the best thing to do is to stop and walk away, which is, and like, give yourself a timeout. And what it does is, then the kids will follow you, because like, why are you leaving me? Like, they're like, they don't understand, but you're giving the situation a time, and for yourself to give yourself some time to pause and think about the next step, whether you're going to punish them, or sometimes just you're leaving the room and shutting the door and going to your own bedroom is punishment enough, because your kid wants to follow you. And a lot of times that just separating yourself from them is the punishment. But what I'm saying is kind of in line with the same thing you're saying. Take a beat, sit back on it for a second, and contemplate your next step before, like my son, he'll just and it's like a big argument, when it's like, go to your room, have a moment, come back and let's talk, kind
Sure.
of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in recovery, they call it the power of the pause. It's just, but like I said, as simple as that little process is, it's a toolkit. Yeah. And the other thing too is, again, I'm making several points at one time because they're a big deal.
Mhm.
Something as simple as that can help you change how you think about things, right? Let's say, for example, every time someone says something that hurts your feelings, the way you've reacted all your life is to get angry, as an example. And so, guess what? You have wired your brain to act that way. You have trained your brain to act that way. Over and over and over again, you've reacted the same way. Literally, the chemistry and the structure of your brain has built neuron pathways that reinforce that behavior. But guess what? You can change that. It's something called neuroplasticity, right? Neuroplasticity says, in effect, you are what you think. You can change your thought patterns. So if you start saying, wait a minute, when somebody says something that makes me angry, I'm going to pause and I'm going to think something nice. And I'm making this up as an example, right? The point being, and you start doing that way, you will change the neural pathways in your brain. Neuroplasticity is your worst enemy if you have negative thought patterns, because they will tend to get ingrained. It can be your best friend because you can change your life no matter how old you are. And so it's very, very, very powerful. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You just have to decide that I want to think about life in a more positive, more effective way. You know,
Kind of like when I watch commercials that I know I'm going to cry, I have to like turn it off, because I know when I see it, I'm going to cry on that commercial. I can't stop it, because every time I see it, I cry. I'm like, I just can't stop crying. And I look around to make sure nobody's watching me cry, because it's the ugly cry that I do. So okay, well, let's put a pin in it, but let's ask one more question for the listeners out there. Do you have one message of hope that if you could leave them today, what would it be?
um,
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I'll start with the fact that everybody listening has something going on, right? We all have issues. Uh, it might be at the current point, everything could be going kind of well, but it could be insecurities. It could be anxiety. It could be sadness. It could be a substance. It could be loneliness. It could be a lack of purpose. It could be a lack of meaning. You're not broken. You're normal. Other people have issues going on. They're just not running around talking about it. So, but you can take small steps that will move you in the right direction. If, in other words, again, you can study neuroscience, wellness, psychology, recovery, the Bible, and they will show you that you can change your life one small step at a time. You don't have to figure it all out right now. If you feel lonely, take one step. Um, Go out and be around people, or text somebody to say hello. If you feel like a lack of purpose, do a random act of kindness for someone. If you feel like I just need to get back in better shape, Go for a 10-minute walk. You can just taking that first step will now get you moving in a positive direction and give you some positive reinforcement. And then the next step becomes a little bit easier before. So wherever you're hurting, to understand, because probably been there, done that, but life can get better, and it can get better one step at a time.
You're so positive. I just could listen to you all day long. So one more time, tell us your landing page where people can come and find you.
Okay. Main
And
website
you,
is lifeimprovementsteps.com. And from there, you can join the blog first. So then you get a weekly update on cool things going on. By the way, we're on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Pinterest, and we're about to launch TikTok. And on all of those, our handle is at Life Improvement Steps. So it's kind of the same as our website. But on the website, you'll be able to find things that can help you. But join the blog while you're there. And I look forward to being in touch as we move forward. So.
that sounds awesome. Also, if you go to my website, justsayin.net, that's JESSSAYING.net, and you go to podcast, scroll down, find this episode. And if you click on Steve Ward's name, it'll take you to his website as well. It's just another way to drive traffic to you. And I just want to leave it here. I'm just really thankful that you came on today because your message was so positive, and I know the listeners are going to get something out of this. And I'm just very thankful that you came on. Thank you so much.
But Jess, I enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I love what you do. I appreciated the opportunity.
And just remember, everybody, just be kind to one another. And, we're all in this world together. Stay positive, be kind, and take care.
Low, talking about the days we used to know. VCR tapes and dial-up tones, raising kids living with achy bones. Leather jackets and big hair days, now it's carpool lines and PTA. Neon dreams turn into schoolyard fights, but our hearts glow in retro nights. We are Gen X, living both worlds. From cassette tapes to a digital world. Parenting now with a nod to the past. The retro love we know will last. We are Gen X, living both worlds. From cassette tapes to a digital world. A nod to the past, the retro love we know will last. We dance to the beats of the boombox sound. Now bedtime stories echo all around. But deep inside, we're the mixtape kings, still fighting life with arcade dreams. A pizza slice, telling tales with a side of advice, laughing at the way